All right, this week's tip. Here it is. On Google, you can actually track the price of flights. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this because I feel like I'm pretty tech savvy, but I would manually just go in and constantly search and think like Tuesdays are better than Sundays. But you can set up a tracker to tell you when a flight is the cheapest and then go ahead and buy. That's this week's tip.
Welcome to the Family Legacy Podcast. The podcast goes beyond legal jargon and gets to the root of how to ensure your past, present, and future are protected. This episode is brought to you by the Rutkowski Law Firm, Michigan's leading asset protection, estate planning, Medicaid, and elder law firm. And here's our host, Michael Rutkowski. Michael, happy Tuesday. How's it going?
It's going great. How about you, Carrie?
Pretty good. Love the tip this week. It sounds like you're doing some flights and planning over there.
Yeah,
What's going on?
so here's what's going on in my world is my wife and I, maybe 5 years ago, set out a goal that we want to show our girls the world. And we've never been outside of Mexico and Canada and the United States. And so it's time. It's time to do it. So 2025, we are planning a trip with the girls. I don't know where. This is where I'm leaning on you, audience. Where should we go? So 3 girls, 12, 10, and 8, where's a family-friendly place to get your feet wet, first trip overseas, easy flight, all those things. Would love some recommendations. So please reach out and help me out.
There's an article. I'll go dig it up for you because we were thinking about heading over to Europe, but we didn't want to do Paris, the traditional Rome. My kids aren't really, I've been to both of those places. I just don't see my kids caring as deeply as I do about the art architecture.
Yeah, gotcha.
But on that list, there was something around, I think it was Stockholm, surprisingly enough.
Oh.
It's supposed to be the ultimate kid-friendly city to go visit. So
wow.
I'll plant that seed with you, and we'll look forward to hearing from our audience of where they would recommend.
Yeah. Some of the information that you need is 7 days. So that's how long we're going to be. 1 week is the only time. So I know a lot of people recommend bouncing around from cities. So all we have is 7 days, but open to bouncing around. Just, let me know. Let me know what you do.
I don't know. I like becoming a neighborhoody. I also feel like with kids too, it sort of takes a minute to settle in somewhere.
For sure.
So I would say if you can find a place that you really want to explore and see it and live it, I would recommend not. I'm going to go against the grain and I'm going to say I recommend not bouncing around, but we'll see what other people say. We'll see what they have to say.
Yeah. So appreciate your effort. Thank you in advance.
Yes. Stay tuned on that. If you have any suggestions for Michael, simply email him at mlr@rutkowskilawfirm.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. We'll discuss, even though you're going to email Michael, we'll discuss them on the show. It's more fun that way. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you. I can't wait to hear more. In the meantime, back at the ranch here at the Rutkowski Law Firm, we got a lot going on. Few things. We've been having this podcast now. We've done a few episodes, got them in our back pocket. We're launching them one at a time. It's really exciting. But I think one of the, it's all well and good to talk about the stuff, the features, what you're going to get, why each piece is important. But I do wonder if a roadblock for folks is the unknown of well, how do I even get started? And what does that even look like? As somebody who hates getting on the phone with pretty much anybody, I feel like that's a roadblock for me personally of how long is this going to take? And oh my gosh, endless paperwork that I'm going to have to fill out. So I thought it would be good to walk people through it. Maybe take out the worries a little bit.
This is actually a great topic. A lot of times when a family meets with an estate planning attorney, it's probably going to be one of their first times meeting with an attorney, hopefully, right? So there is a lot of you can just tell when we meet with families that they're just a little nervous, they don't know, they think, I don't know, there's just something nerve-wracking about meeting with an attorney, I guess. But no, I think it'd be great to talk about what does that process look like so that everyone understands. And I can tell you this, I work with lawyers across the country. You're going to find that the process is very similar. It doesn't matter if you meet with us, although I hope you do, but if you don't, everyone else's process is very similar when it comes to this type of work. It's not your typical pay a retainer fee and we just bill hourly. There's kind of like a step-by-step process. So maybe it makes sense, Carrie, to start from the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like to even book a consult, right?
Yeah.
This day and age, you can probably do it online. Most law firms will have some kind of request to book a consult, but you're going to probably at some point get on the phone or exchange some information with the law firm. Just what are you looking to do? Like, why are we even talking about estate planning? Did you have a situation where a relative passed away and they went through the probate process and you're trying to avoid that? Did you have some kids? And maybe it's your first time parent and you're just like, I know this is something I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to reach out and see what this is all about. So usually that first call to the law firm or engagement with the firm is just talking to the firm about, what you want to meet about. And you don't need to necessarily know. I mean, if you just tell them, hey, I think I'm supposed to do some estate planning. Can we talk about it? That's really it. What the law firm is going to do from there is they're
Wait,
probably going to,
before we get there,
yeah,
Michael, I think this is really key because I think that's the getting started piece is definitely the hardest. And can you give us some ideas on what people call in about? You mentioned that you could just say, "Hey, I'm thinking about estate planning," but people don't even always know what a full estate planning is or if they need a full estate plan. So they show up with different requests. What are some of
yeah.
those?
Yeah, I would say the probably the biggest request is for a will. I mean, TV and the media has taught us over the years that a will is the end all be all of estate planning tools. But when you get down to like what someone is trying to accomplish with the estate planning tool, like avoiding probate, making it as easy as on the kids as possible, a trust might make more sense. But again, that is the whole purpose of that first initial consultation to like figure that out. So I would say most folks or families call wanting to put in place a will or maybe a power of attorney and document. That's another big one too. Like they have a loved one that's health is declining and they know that they're going to need to be able to make decisions for them. And how do they do that? And so there's the group of people who just learn at some point in their life that they need to do estate planning. And then there's another group of people that some other professional is pushing them to us. And what I mean by that is they might be working with a financial advisor who has, managed their assets and they say, hey, it's probably a good time for you to get an estate plan. Or maybe it's a doctor or a hospital that's saying, their health is declining and you need a power of attorney. So another professional is saying that you need estate planning services. And so those are probably the biggest reasons families call. Declining in health, power of attorney, will are like the starting point. But again, that's okay.
Okay.
You don't need to know. Like, I guess that's the point of this is you
Yep.
don't need to know. And so the
Exactly.
first step is to set up that initial consultation to just learn what are your options. That's really the point of that first meeting is going to be, and that meeting's about an hour. So we'll just keep walking through what the process looks like. It's about an hour meeting with the law firm to just figure out what are your options, right? It's just like buying a car. You go into the dealership and you got to learn what are your options and what is the cost going to be for each of these options. And then it's up to you to decide what you want to do. That's all going to happen in the first initial consult. Prior to that initial consult, the law firm is probably going to request some information. They're probably going to send you either some online questionnaire or paper questionnaire to just get some basic understanding of like, are you married or are you single? Do you have kids? How old are these kids? We need that information to make an educated recommendation to you of like what maybe might make the most sense. A lot of times estate planning attorneys are going to ask for some financial information too. And it's up to you what you want to share, but it does help us. And know this too, that is not how the secret sauce is. We don't price based on assets. It has nothing to do with whether you have 500,000, a million, or 1.5 million. Like that is not how prices are done. It's more the complexities of what's going on in your life. Is it a blended family that each has their own adult children and we need to make sure that one can't cut out the other? Like those things make it more complex. Do you have out-of-state properties? That's what's important to us when we make a recommendation. If you have everything in a Chase account and then one investment account, it doesn't get easier than that. And it doesn't matter if you had $5 million. Like, that's really straightforward. Married couple kids, and everything really consolidated when it comes to assets. That's a very straightforward, estate planning for us. Does that make sense? So the first
Yeah.
step is engaging with calling the law firm just to see what, when you can get in for an initial consultation, booking that initial consult where we just go over, here are your options, and here's what it looks like, the cost for each one of those.
Let's talk about cost because that's always a big hurdle
Yeah.
for people. What are sort of let's take the most simple. Let's say it's not a big overcomplicated thing. Let's say it's pretty straightforward.
Yep. Yeah.
What sort of the
So yeah,
starting
great.
costs for something like that?
Yeah, great question. Know this, though, it's all done on a flat fee basis. I would say 95% of attorneys out there all over the country will do estate planning services on a flat fee basis. So you know exactly what you're getting into. They'll be able to provide you that information at the end of the meeting once they go through all these things. Like, hey, a trust might be this, a will package might be that. If you want to include funding, which is the retitling of all your assets, that might be this. They'll give you all that. Just here's some rough ballparks. For like a will, power of attorney, deed package, that's probably a starting point. You're looking at anywhere between 1 to 2,000 in flat fees. Then from there you go into revocable trust planning, which is probate avoidance, making sure you have power of attorneys, and retitling of the assets into the trust. That could be anywhere from, call it 2 to 6,000, depending on complexities. And then it just goes up from there on if you have more complexities, asset protection planning, tax planning, those kinds of things can be on top of that. But again, the beauty of it is you'll know exactly what each of these costs, and you can say what's important to you and what investment you want to make. It's pretty straightforward at the end of that meeting. And then at the end of that meeting, you typically make a decision of, do we want to move forward with the process or not? That's up to you. When it comes to those initial consultations, some law firms charge a fee, some don't. Most times that if there is any fee charged for that initial consultation to be part of your planning, if you engage the firm to do the planning, that I've seen range anywhere from 100 to some firms charge as much as 750 for that initial consult. Some do it for free. I'd recommend, don't base your decision on whether if it's a free consult or not. You get what you pay for, unfortunately.
What's some of the things you should be looking for when you're meeting with an estate planner? Like, I imagine that when you're trying to talk to somebody about really important life-changing event things,
Yeah.
finding the right folks to sit down with. I mean, are all estate planners generally the same, or is there some tips and tricks in terms of
Yeah. Yeah,
the
that's a great
vibe?
question. I would say we all kind of have our own specialty. Here's probably the most important tip is work with someone who specializes in estate planning. There's so many nuances to the law that it is very difficult to get a quality estate plan out of someone who also does divorce, real estate law, criminal, traffic. They do a wide variety of things. It's very difficult. I would guess that it's just not going to be the same as someone who's really specializes in estate planning. Then from there, we all kind of have our specialties. We specialize in asset protection. Some attorneys specialize on the business side. They do more business succession planning than general estate planning. And then culturally, like, you just got to fit with the person. Because the most important thing for me is that someone feels comfortable with me to tell me what I need to know to properly estate plan for them. So if we're not a good personality match, it's going to be difficult for me to do the best job for them. So I think everyone has, what they see as an estate planning attorney. Someone might want a guy who's got gray hair and is 75 years old. Well, that's not me. That's okay. Like, that's okay. Someone might want someone a little younger that they know will be able to grow with their family. Like, everyone has what they want. So I would definitely recommend meeting with a couple unless you have a recommendation, so that you have a good fit there. Learn their processes. Like, how long do they keep documents? How friendly is their staff? Are they available to send, like, what's their technology like? Can they email documents to institutions and stuff? Like, you'll know pretty quickly if you meet with a couple what you fit with and what you don't. Some do virtual. We do a lot of virtual and in person. Some don't do virtual at all. And virtual might be something you're really looking for so that you don't have to leave your home every time you need to go have one of these appointments. That's a lot.
Let's talk about, yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think it's really important to make sure that you go with your gut on feeling like you found a good fit. Um, in terms of what happens after that, like let's say you decide you do want to move forward, is it a pretty lengthy process? Is it a lot of paperwork? Can you sort of give us a summary of what we can expect if
Yeah.
we were to sign on to do our estate plan?
Great question. I would say the average process takes 4 to 6 weeks, and that is both determining our schedule, like when we can have meetings, but also the clients too, because everyone's got a lot going on. We do a lot of emergency plans too. If a family calls us and health is declining, we've sometimes knocked out plans for a family in 24 to 48 hours. So I think we specialize a little bit more in that, but in any event, the average length is probably a month, two tops if it's just like the holidays or there's a little complexity to it. But usually the process looks something like you have the initial meeting with the attorney. If you want to move forward, you'll schedule a design meeting where that's where you go through all the nitty-gritty of who's going to be your successor trustees, beneficiaries. Like, the attorney will guide you through all these questions, and they should prepare you so that you've already been talking about it a little bit. Then we would draft the plan and schedule a review and signing meeting. And there's about a week or two between each of these meetings. And then once the plan is signed, then we move to funding, where we get all the assets into the trust. So it's going to be a 3 to 4 meeting process, depending on the attorney or the law firm's process, but that's kind of how it looks. Zoom, in person, whatever works for the family, but that's kind of but you're not going to pay anything until you engage the firm to move forward to the design meeting, typically. Does that make
Let's
sense?
talk about yeah, no, that's really helpful. Let's talk about the funding piece for a second.
It's important.
It is important, and it sounds like it's also something you specialize in a little bit. Is that
Yeah, it is.
possible? Like, where not
You
everybody
know,
does the funding piece?
we recognized years ago that we were meeting with so many families that maybe had an estate plan done by another attorney, and they come to us wanting to make changes, and that's fine. You don't have to work with the attorney that you originally did your documents with. Any attorney can make changes as long as they know what they're doing. Once we get through the changes they want to make, we ask them the question, tell us a little bit about what's in your trust, like what's funded in your trust. Is your checking and savings retitled into the name of the trust? Is your house in the trust? Do you have a vacation property in the trust? And we always get this deer in headlights look, like, well, what do you mean we paid this lawyer all this money? Doesn't that mean everything's in our trust? And if you don't actually go to every single institution and let them know how to tie it to your trust, you're just back in probate doing all the things that you didn't want to do, that you thought you were accomplishing by doing this estate plan. So funding is the most important piece. Most lawyers, just because they don't have the staff, the resources to do it, will just put a one-page sheet on top of your trust, slide it across the table, and say, now, client, it's on you to go to all your institutions and do these things. And life happens and nothing ends up getting into the trust, which is super unfortunate. So our law firm does it differently, and there's some other law firms out there that do that as well, but it's definitely the minority. I would say less than 5% of law firms do this, where we'll take on the funding for the clients and make sure that everything gets in their trust. So whatever they were trying to accomplish with their plan actually works.
Great question to have with you when you go look for an estate planning lawyer to ask
Yeah.
them if they do the funding piece. So thank you for your wisdom. I
Yeah. It's
I
it's a great point you just said. I feel like sometimes we get a lot of phone calls just right out of the gate asking price. And to me, that's saying that to families, it sometimes feels like a commodity, that you're going to get the same thing from, it's like trying to buy a Chevy Silverado. Like, you can call around all day knowing that each one is exactly the same, right? As long as you know the options and whatever. But estate planning is completely different at every law firm. what you get. Do they do the funding? What is the experience of the staff and the firm? There's so many nuances to it that asking right out of the gate what the price is not the right first question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think that's where everybody just knows where to start. And like we said, it's most importantly to start and then give your brain a minute to catch up and start thinking through what you need and is this is the right law firm for you and if they're going to be able
Yeah.
to do it end to end and
Yeah.
really cover you in that regard. So thank you, Michael, for walking us through that. Any
Sure.
last pieces
Okay.
of wisdom as people think about kicking off this process and getting started?
Um, just do it.
Just do
So
it,
many,
Nike
it's
style.
just one of those things that so many people procrastinate on, that you got to get it done. And I think it's a lot easier to get done than you would think. And so it's time to just act on it. Just do it.
Just
You know,
do it.
there's so many things in estate planning that timing does matter of when you get it done. So I would just say, start the process. If it's on your mind, get it done. I can't tell you how many families after we're done, like they just feel like they tell us that they can sleep better at night because now they have this in place. Which is a great, yeah, it's
I
good
will
stuff.
say, next week or the week after, we will be having our customer success director on to walk through some wonderful stories of how we have helped families in case of an emergency and how the law firm has really stepped up and stepped in for those families, and most importantly, how to avoid it.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
here for
excited.
you, and we can do it. And how can you get ahead so that you don't have to? So I look forward to having that conversation. Um, Michael, I'm so grateful as always. If you would like to work with Michael and his team going through this process to plan your estate, please call us at 248-955-2842 or email mlr@rutkowskilawfirm.com. Again, the phone number is 248-955-2842. Michael, before we go, 7
Yes,
days between now and the next one, what are you most looking forward to?
it's a good question. I don't really have anything on, falls in the air. And so we're in Michigan, so leaves are changing and we're gonna hit the cider mill. I'm excited for that.
Nice.
Soon though, we have a family wedding that a lot of people are coming in town for. I'm really excited for that. To get some family time. My wife's brother, who's going to be coming on the show, he has three daughters the same ages as my three daughters. And so when they get together, it is just like, see ya. And they have so
Oh,
much fun. So I can't wait for them to see their bestie cousins.
so good. Cousins are the best.
Yeah,
Cousins are
for
the
sure.
best. Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you to our
My pleasure.
listeners. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode is brought to you by the Rutkowski Law Firm, Michigan's leading asset protection, estate planning, Medicaid, and elder law firm. And again, if you'd like help from our estate planning and asset protection needs, please call 248-955-2842. That's 248-955-2842. Thank you again, Michael. See you next week.
My pleasure. See you next week.